starting soon, round 2. second was Nelson Piquet for the brand new JGR Meister team. That's a very good result for them, as they got both cars in the points. Johansson was sixth, and splitting Piquet and Johansson were Nigel Mansell, who finished third for Tornado, Martin Brundle for Pedersen, finished fourth, and Riccardo Patrese, who finished fifth for FJR. It's the top six who get points in this particular series. Some key times were Alain Prost for FJR, who was 22nd for an engine failure, and Thierry Boutsen had a brake failure for the other person. Both Willows retired for Kojima and Alvarenga. Function had an engine failure. Marino also retired for suspension failure, as did both James and Gerhard Berg. That was important. And both Shaker Biggs retired as well. That was a shame for Sean Lacey, who did well on the course to get a podium, but it wasn't meant to be for the young Frenchman. So, at Imola, we have Ayrton Senna, who took pole position by more than half a second from FJR's Alain Prost. Impressive performance from René Arnoux, who starts third for Andrew Racing. And then fourth, fifth, and sixth are Nelson Piquet, Thierry Boutsen, and Jean Alesi. Looking at the rest of the grid, we have Riccardo Patrese in the other FJR in seventh. So after the disappointment of Brazil for Prost, they're hoping for at least a double points finish. Both Willows in the top 10, with Nakajima in 8th and Michele Alboreto in 9th. Alessandro Nannini completes the top 10 for the other Andrew Racing. Both Gujeras somewhat anonymous, qualifying So we are just waiting for the start of the race, which will see Ayrton Senna lead the field away. And alongside him is Prost. Arnoux is third, Piquet fourth, Boutsen fifth, and Alesi sixth. And the Tifosi are expecting a bit of a good race between the fields, but they are hoping for a Darkfire Senna domination, like what happened in Brazil. And hoping that Jonathan Palmer can make his way through the field as well. Did have quite a good race last time out in Brazil, despite qualifying way down the order. Raced well to 7th, having started last on the grid that time. And you can see the photography flashing in the grandstands of this Imola circuit as we await the start of the race. It's on the outside, same as Brazil actually, although the first and last corner in Brazil were right. And here we go, the green light's gone off, so the red light is now on as we get ready for the start at Imola. It's a long hold, but the green light goes out, and Senna has gotten away well, but Prost has gotten away slightly better. Now what happens into this long flat out left? I think Senna is going to hold on to the lead. Look at Arnoux challenging his compatriot for second position through Tamburello. I think Arnoux has got it. Now he's in the slipstream of Senna as they approach Toza. Prost is down to 4th. Boutsen has passed him as well. And if to Toza, Arnoux challenging for the race lead, and Arnoux takes the lead. Great start from the Andrew Racing. Up to the lead from 3rd on the grid, and Senna holding on to 2nd at the moment. It is Boutsen in 3rd, and they've all gone through the first series. No, they haven't. As Satoru Nakajima has had a spin at the Toza corner, and he looks as if it's reached his contact with his teammate. And Alboreto was the one who just lost a bit of... Oh, no, it wasn't. It was one of the Gajeras who tagged into Alboreto. It was Warwick. Derek Warwick tagged Alboreto, which then ricocheted him into the other Willows of Nakajima. So that's bad luck for the Willows driver. And there he is stranded. Arnoux off the track, and Boutsen takes the lead of the race. And what has happened to Senna? Something has happened to Senna because he is nowhere to be seen. Now Senna has a look into Piratella, contact between the two, and round goes the Darkfire. So the winner of the Brazilian Grand Prix is plummeting down the orbit like a rock. It is Boutsen in the lead of the race for the, I believe it's Edison. It's not Edison. Still learning these teams. It is Edison. My apologies. As we go through the Aqua Minerale tight chicane, I think we prefer the newer version, but it's an interesting little feature. There's BK in the JGR Meister car, and Prost is in 3rd. And Arnoux survived that incident. He is down in 4th position, and going to the lead is BK into Ravazza, and off the track goes Boutsen, and that's going to put Prost up into 2nd position. And there was confirmation that Nakajima has retired from the race. Now then, where's the rest of the field? We've got Alesi in 5th position, Riccardo Patrese in 6th, so both FJRs in the top 6. And where is Senna? There is Senna down in 21st position. He's got a lot of catching up to do, but I'll be fascinated to see how he can do. He dominated the Brazilian Grand Prix very convincingly. Now let's see what he can do from the back. So around the Tamburello they go. It is PK who leads for JGR, and Prost is in 2nd for FJR. And Boutsen is 3rd for Pedersen. Now, is there going to be some action? Patrese getting a bit close to Alesi, but not close enough to try an outbraking manoeuvre into the Toza hairpin. Somebody is trying a go. It is the unbearable of Chiva, and he's just got through one of the tornadoes. I think that's Gugelmin. It is indeed, and they're the two AJs, and there is Senna, still in 21st, but no doubt will be quick as BK goes through the Aqua Minerale chicane. Let's do the rest of the field. There's Martini up in 9th position, so that's a good start from 14th from the grid. But Unbearable looking for some points. Unbearable, the second team by Guillaume Kramer. He's got Gajera and the Unbearable team. Not the first time we've seen that in the FF1M world, as Palmer has a look at the inside of Mansell going into Variante Alta, the high chicane, as it's roughly translated. Down this straight, and there's still some battling. I think both Unbearables are going at it into Ravazza. And is Gugelmin going to have a look back at Chiva? He is, but not close enough. And Chiva holds onto that position as the two AJs go into combat, Modena and De Cesaris. At the end of lap 2, it's still Piquet who has pulled out a bit of a buffer over Alain Prost. Let's see what the gap is. It's 1.4 seconds between the two. Close enough, 1.4, 1.386. And it's Boutsen who's a little bit closer to the back of Prost. But it's Alesi versus Arnoux potentially going into Tosa, although Patrese is still close behind. So a three-way battle developing for 4th position between the Andrew Racing of Arnoux, the Shake and Bake of Jean Alesi, and the FJR of Riccardo Patrese. There we have a look at the Frenchman who suffered an unfortunate suspension failure and is challenging the other Frenchman of Arnoux into Aqua Minerale, but Arnoux shutting the door. Marino doesn't believe in rear-view mirrors, so he's going to be a difficult person to pass, but he's made a mistake at the exit of Aqua Minerale, and Jean Alesi has taken the position. Effectively a commentator's curse, and it's benefited Jean Alesi. Now, can he catch up to the back of Thierry Boutsen? 3rd position. And is Riccardo Patrese going to do something about Arnoux? Now the outside into the back. They're very close between the two and nearly contact. It is Arnoux holding the position. Slightly wide first apex, absolutely nailing the second apex of Ravazza as they go into the double chicane sequence of Variante Bassa. The first one very quick, the second one less so. And you go straight on into the pits, but it's far too early in the race for that. Onto lap number 4 for battle for 5th position, Arnoux and Patrese. And look behind, you can see Michele Alboreto closing up to those as well. Arnoux's going to be a bit of a roadblock. There is quite a long line of traffic. And Senna, I believe, has already passed one of the... It's either a Pedersen or a Shake and Bake. They've got very similar liveries. It's a Pedersen challenging an AJ, so it must be the other Shake and Bake that's of Johnny Herbert that Ayrton Senna has passed already. Now, the next target for Senna is Stefan Johansson, and that is for 19th position, as Martin Brundle and I think it's Andrea De Cesaris are about to move back to 17th position. Nelson Piquet has a 2-second lead over Alain Prost as he goes through the high chicane, Variante Alta. Longish straight, but not that long, into Ravazza. And he's extending the gap. The gap at the second sector point is now 2.3 seconds to Prost. So Piquet pulling away very steadily and very nicely for Laura Chung's team, JGR Meister. Meanwhile, Boutsen is about 1.1 seconds off of Prost. Let's see what the gap is between those two on this lap. And it's still fairly close for 5th position between René Arnoux and Riccardo Patrese. Less so, actually. I think Arnoux's pulling away a little bit, and now Patrese looks like he may become under pressure from Michele Alboreto in the Willows. Willows keen for some points after their double retirement. And there's Derek Warwick in 8th position, Pierluigi Martini in 9th, and looking in 10th position, like the other Andrew Racing, or the Andrew F1, depending on what he likes to be called, it's Alessandro Nannini, one of the many Italians in the field. 6 to be exact, and there's a battle between an unbearable thing. That is Martini versus Warwick, and that's 8th position for Pierluigi Martini. So the Italians going very well, and there's Nigel Mansell looking at the back of Gerhard Berger for 11th position. As we resume back up front, Piquet still pulling away. He was 0.4 of a second quicker than Prost on that lap, and Prost was about half a second quicker than Thierry Boutsen, so they are starting to spread out a little bit. As they go through the straight going into the Ravazza once again. We're all expecting 1 stop for the entire field. The entire field were on 1 stop, but the Ayrton Senna was forced into a 2-stop strategy after an electrical gremlin at some point around a third distance to a half distance, and that essentially put Ayrton onto a 2-stop strategy, and that ironically worked in his favour as he was able to open. Was lapping up to 3 seconds, maybe even 4 seconds a lap quicker than the entire field, passed them very quickly, and then pulled away inexorably. And even after making a second stop at roughly lap 45, Senna was able to build his lead once again, which was eventually 1 minute from Nelson Piquet. Brazilian won 2 in that race at their home crowd. The odd one out was Mauricio Gugelmin, the third Brazilian in the field, who finished 9th. Not bad for 18th on the grid, but not what Tornado wants, as they are hungry for some good results. As we round the Piratella, and the gap is now, it was 2.8 seconds at the end of the lap. It is now 3.1 as we go past the first sector point, approaching the second sector point at the exit of the Aqua Minerale complex. Wait for Prost to go through as well. Still 3.1, so Prost pegging the gap in the second sector. And Patrese has passed Arnoux. We've just seen that. On this lap, Riccardo Patrese has overtaken Rene Arnoux, and we'll have a look at it. It's into Aqua Minerale. Riccardo Patrese outbraking the Andrew Racing of Rene Arnoux. And a neat manoeuvre to move up into 5th position. So now both FJRs in the top 5. And a big lockup from Patrese, actually. Now, is that going to give Arnoux the opportunity? Or is Arnoux going to come with the pressure from Pierluigi Martini, who's looking for some points for the Unbearable team? Both Unbearables finished the Brazilian Grand Prix in 8th and 14th in favour of Eddie Cheever. And in the Rabatza, we can see Manini coming under pressure from Gerhard Berger. And Berger himself has got Nigel Mansell crawling all over his gearbox. And just behind Mansell, you can see Eddie Cheever, and then, no, in fact, it's Jonathan Palmer, who's once again having a good race from way down the field. I believe it was 15th on the grid. So he's made his way up to 13th, so not a bad run from Palmer once again. Son Jolien not having a good time in FF2M, having been sacked. And looking around the outside at Tamburello, that's not to be recommended. And I think that's just about lost the momentum, although he's closing on the slipstream once again. Berger down the inside of Nannini into Tosa, but Nannini hanging on. Good defensive driving from Nannini. A bit naive of Berger to try around the outside of Tamburello because it's a very fast left and the racing line doesn't allow for it. Oh, Nannini's going to have a spin at Piratella and he's undone all his hard work. So Berger moves up a position, but now Mansell has got an opportunity to get a run at the Gajera. Let's have a look at this from Nannini's perspective. So going into Piratella, moving to the middle and hitting a bump quite badly, and that pitches the car into a spin. And that's a disaster for the Italian. There's Mansell now. Palmer's going to be side by side with Cheever going into the Aqua Minerale. Palmer hanging on to the position, so the delay gave Cheever the opportunity, but not enough. And there's Senna all over the back of either the Cesaris or Modena. It's the Cesaris, and it's for 17th position into the Variante Alta. Johansson having a lock-up going into the chicane. And let's see what Senna can do going into the Rabatza, trying the outside line. And nearly contact between the two as they go into the braking zone. Ezra is hanging on. Senna will get his opportunity probably on the next lap going into Tosa. Through the Variante Bassa they go, that's the first one. Now the second one, and there's a queue forming behind Maurizio Gugelmin. There's Martin Brundle in the mix, and the other AJ of Stefano Modena. There he is, and here's Ayrton Senna. He had a look around the outside on the pit straight, but again, not to be recommended. And a bit unsure as we go for Tamburello. We're on board with the Brazilian. First time that was effective with the outside Tosa, and that's the wrong line. Now Brundle's having a look at the inside of Gugelmin. Gugelmin hanging on. Next overtaking opportunity into the Piratella. And something's happened to somebody. We're having a look. It looks like Derek Warwick has had a go at Rene Arnoux going into Tosa. And let's see how this one ends. Warwick up the inside. Side by side through Tosa. And Derek Warwick, giving Arnoux a bit of a squeeze. And up to 6th position goes the Gajera. Good move from Warwick. And now Martini's going to have a look at some points going into Piratella. A bit squirrely under braking. Arno hanging on to 7th, so the Andrew Racing not quite as quick in the race as they are in qualifying, as Martini proves that by overtaking him going into Acqua Minerale. So Arno losing another position in the space of the lap. Next target defend would be from Michele Alboreto in the Willows. Going into the high chicane, a lock-up from Martini. And a sniff of the slipstream for Alboreto on Arno. This will be for the battle for 8th position now. And just behind, you see Mansell and the other Gajera of Gerhard Berger. Exiting the Ravazza they go. Martini, Arno. There is Alboreto, and then Mansell, then Berger. And who's behind that? It's Jonathan Palmer. And then the other unbearable of Eddie Cheever. Arno proving a tad roadblocky as they start their 10th, 9th lap around that area. I think this is on lap 9 now. In the slipstream through Tamburello, which way is Alboreto going to go? It's effectively now the outside. Arno's defended this position successfully before. It's Piratello, which appears to be his problem corner, and then Acqua Minerale. So exiting Toes as they go. Up the steep hill under the bridge, which is advertising a little hatchback, and then a slightly better hatchback on the other side. Through Piratello, here comes Alboreto's opportunity, but he's got Nigel Mansell having a look inside, outbraking him into Acqua Minerale. Mansell has taken the position away from Alboreto. So that is now P9 for Nige. Drove for Shake and Bake in the 1988 Classic season, and there was quite a lot of files missing from that particular season due to a hardware failure. So although Mansell did top the season at the end of that for himself and Shake and Bake, who did win the Constructors' Championship, the lack of results meant that the championship was avoided. Oh, look at Jonathan Palmer going up the inside of Berger. Look at that. Great move. Great move from the Darkfire driver. And that's up to 11th position. Now his next target will be the, I think it is Alboreto. Once again, of course it is, because Nakajima is out of the race. And here is Ayrton Senna now making his way up to the back of this train. In 15th position now. He's made good progress after his first lap contact with Rene Arnoux into the Piratello. With the Tamburello he goes. Let's have a look at the speed at the top, see how quickly the Darkfire reaches its top speed. 290, 292. 292 is the top speed of the Darkfire as he brakes hard for the Tosa hairpin. Now Nigel Mansell is going to provide the next bit of action into the Piratello. Nearly contact between himself and Rene Arnoux, but Nigel Mansell takes 8th position now. So Arnoux once again dropping back from the top lot. Now let's see what Nigel can do in the Honda-powered Tornado. It's away, as he does seem quite quick in this race. We are at 1/6 distance, lap 10. It is Nelson Piquet who leads. Frost is second, Boots in third, Lacey fourth, Tracy fifth, and Derek Warwick now in 6th position. Martini is 7th, ahead of Nigel Mansell. There he is in 8th position. And it's Rene Arnoux in 9th, completing the top 10. Michele Alboreto 11th, and having another good race is Jonathan Palmer. He started 15th on the grid. Eddie Cheever next up. Also a good race for him so far. He is 12th at the moment. As we have a look at Nigel Mansell through the final chicane, the Variante Bassa. About to start his 11th lap. And he's got 3.1 seconds to make up on Pierluigi Martini. And if we look further back, we may see Jonathan Palmer having a go at Michele Alboreto. There they are, quite close together. Now they're nearly side by side. But Michele Alboreto defending that one quite widely, going into Tosa. And further back, Senna's having a look at Martin Brundle going into the Tosa hairpin, and that is another position gained. Yes, it is for Ayrton Senna, nearly contact between his right rear and the left front of Martin Brundle. So the Brazilian making some good progress now to 14th position. His next target will be the Jera of Gerhard Berger, who's not having such a good race. Started 13th, still is 13th. See what they can do. They're good friends, these two. Seem to get along quite well, and Berger brings out the more joking side, and Palmer's in pressure from Eddie Cheever going into the Ravazza. Here comes, and now it's going to give an opportunity to Gerhard Berger, and Ayrton Senna for that matter. As they start lap 12. Now 1/5 distance of the San Marino Grand Prix. 5.1 seconds is the lead. UK holds over Alain Prost. But we're concentrating on the battle for, this will be 13th position between Senna and Berger. But now Berger's going to make it a battle for 12th, as he's going to put Eddie Cheever under a bit of pressure going into the Tosa hairpin. And Berger's going to make the move, outbraking the American going into the Tosa hairpin, and he's got 12th position. Now can Senna follow through, and how quickly can he? There's only 2/10 to get over the first sector point. And dropping back a little bit, but he'll gain on the rest of this lap. You can see the very traditional Ferrari design with that steel roll hoop and no bodywork to support that. Many of the teams have gone for the bodywork over the roll hoop. Ferrari might be different. / dark fire. Through the Variante Alta they go. And can Senna have a look at Cheever going into Ravazza? He's in the slipstream. Cheever defending his line, taking the middle ground, defending from the unbearable. And exiting Ravazza, they go. Still a big queue of cars. I wonder who's fronting that. Could well be Arno, who hasn't been quick this race so far. And if he's just playing a long game with his tyres. All expecting one stops in this race. And now Senna, right at the back of Cheever, down the inside into Tamburello. That's not exactly going to work. He's lost a lot of momentum, but he's back in the slipstream, but it's too far back now. So Senna's going to have to work for this one. Cheever quite wide at the moment. And at the front of the queue, it is indeed Arno, who sits around 9th position, 9th to 10th position as they go through the Piratella. Something's got to give. And now Senna's going to have a firmer look inside into Minerale. Once again, Cheever hanging on. That's good defensive, slightly wide at the second apex is Cheever. And now Senna is going to have a good run going into the Variante Alta. But I don't think he's quite close enough. He's got the momentum. But once again, Cheever defending fairly relentlessly. I know wide at the exit of the chicane goes Cheever, and Senna's taken the position at last. So that's up to 13th for the Brazilian, and Brundle follow through. Is Brundle going to have an opportunity going into Ravazza? Not quite. Senna hanging on so far. And Gugelmin making a move up to the inside of Modena, I think that is. And Johansson is going to follow through. It's all kicking off here at Imola now. And Gugelmin gaining a position on that lap. And now he's going to have a look at the inside of Cheever, if he can close the gap quite quickly. Through the Variante Bassa to go. There's Senna in 13th. Now, how much can he pull away by? It was a 1:39 on that lap, which is a lot less than his own personal best. Roughly a 1:35, 1:36, as we see Jonathan Palmer side by side with someone going into Tosa. I think that was with Alboreto. Round Tosa goes Senna. So both Darkfires on the move, it seems. And there's contact. I think Palmer had a spin going through Piratella. There he is. Jonathan Palmer has made contact with Alboreto. We'll see a replay of that. Let's see what happens. Does Alboreto move over under him, or yeah, defending it a little bit. Palmer was already trying to go up the inside. Not the most ideal overtaking opportunity in the world, but Bit of a racing incident, I reckon. But that's cost Palmer dearly. And just saw his rear wheel spinning, so he's going to rejoin. Let's see what he can do from there now, as we have a look at Nelson Piquet, race leader, approaching, this is 1/4 distance now, and sets a lap time of 1 minute 34.9, roughly half a second off of his personal best, but still the quickest driver on the circuit. The gap is now 6 seconds between himself and Alain Prost. Boutsen a further 4 behind, and Alesi on his own in 4th position, and a massive lockup from Piquet going into Tosa, so he's pushing, and that won't have done his tyres any good. Tracy sits in 5th position, some 4.4 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick, and let's look at Piquet for a little bit. There's been an incident at the pit straight. We'll see, I think somebody's had a mechanical problem. As you can see on the left-hand side, it's Stefan Johansson, it's the other JGR who has gone out of the race with a suspension failure. Or some issues with the suspension. Anyway, as Piquet is about to pass his stricken teammate and start lap 16. And have already cleared Johansson's car, so that's good marshalling from the Imola marshals. Prost 2/10 quicker on that lap than Piquet. No doubt that'll be mostly thanks to Piquet's big lockup going into this corner here. No such problems this time for the Brazilian as he exits Tosa, and he's gapped it to Prost 6.1 seconds now as they cross the first sector point. As Piquet approaches the halfway point of the lap, also known as Aqua Minerale, you can just see his brake discs glowing slightly, although that could be his front wing through the spoke patterns on his wheel rims. Cronenberg sponsorship as they approach Aqua Minerale, and they're still advertising hatchbacks midway through the corner. So we switch cameras to Thierry Boutsen, who sits in 3rd position at the moment. 4.4 seconds behind Alain Prost. It's not a bad run from the Pedersen once again, who got a 4th position in Brazil thanks to Martin Brundle. Although Thierry Boutsen was the unenviable achiever of the first retirement of the 1989 season. And that was a brake problem, very unusual at the Rio circuit. This is René Arnoux we're looking at, who is now well over 10 seconds behind Nigel Mansell, and he's got Gerhard Berger just 1.5 seconds behind. So that's going to be a battle to develop soon, because Arnoux's not been that quick in the race. He's been dogged, but he's not been quick. th place, Michele Alboreto having a slight lockup going into the Variante Bassa as a new fastest lap for Ayrton Senna in the Darkfire Ferrari. So he's getting a move on now as his recovery continues. I think the best he can hope for is some form of points finish. When Palmer spun off, the Tornado boss was hoping that it was the other Ferrari. As we go on board with one of the, this is either a Pedersen or a shake and bake, very hard to tell between the two cars. They run very similar black and yellow liveries. It's Boutsen we're on board with. It's a yellow front wing for Pedersen. as he goes through the varianty Bassa chicane, as we switch to PK, the race leader. It's 6 seconds, the gap once again. I don't think that was a particularly quick lap from PK. So he is pushing. Let's see what happens into Tosa. And again, no problems under braking, so he's got the measure of that now. Lacey just beginning to catch Thierry Boutsen now. The gap is 2.7 seconds. Back on board with the Belgian of Boutsen. And there's a Lacey. So Lacey does have black front wings, and the yellow is on his nose box. So that's how to identify the difference between the Shake and Bake and the Pedersen. As we look at Nigel Mansell now, who's caught up to the back of Pierluigi Martini, and has set a personal best first sector as well. It was 300ths quicker than his own previous PB. As Martini is going to have a look at Derek Warwick for 6th position. It's been a good drive for Martini so far. Started 14th on the grid, and he's challenging for points. He better be careful because he has got Nigel Mansell right up his gearbox as they go through the exit of Aqua Minerale, small left-handed kink, and some little houses on the right-hand side. And now we focus back on the battle for the final points position between Derek Warwick, Pierluigi Martini, and that driver there, Nigel Mansell. Martini is going to have a look. Warwick defending as contact between Warwick and Martini, and that's going to give Mansell the opportunity. That's 2 birds with 1 stone right there. And Martini does actually take the position away from Warwick, but he's still in 7th because Nigel Mansell has taken them both. So there you can see Martini just a little bit too late on the brakes going into the Ravazza and pushes Warwick very wide. And the main beneficiary, Nigel Mansell. Now, what can Nigel Mansell do about Riccardo Patrese in 5th position? Because he's got a quite good race car underneath him. Especially from 12th on the grid. That's been a good drive so far from the unofficial current Classic FF1M champion. Warwick's going to be a little bit angry about that one, and he's going to set off in hot pursuit, covered by a lot of red mist. And a lot of red from that unbearable right there, Pierluigi Martini. Braking hard for the Tosa hairpin, and 200ths quicker than his previous personal best on this particular lap so far. We've got a big gap to René Arnoux. It's now Ayrton Senna. Senna has just passed Arnoux. As I can see on the top left, the green gap between Warwick and Arnoux has just changed to Senna. There he is, 9th position now, goes the Brazilian. This is how he did it, outbraking Arnoux into the Tosa hairpin. Senna so much quicker at this stage of the race. And Senna's recovery continues. And he's just overtaken the driver who he had contact with in the first lap as well. So that just shows you how fast Senna is. In just 19 laps, Senna has re-caught and repassed René Arnoux. Except it's not for the lead, it's for 9th. So we're at 1/3 distance now, on board with 3rd place Thierry Boutsen once again. And the gap between himself and Alesi remaining constant, around 2.8 seconds, as Parma has a lockup going into the Variante Alta. Parma also on a recovery drive after his own incident with Michele Alboreto at the Piratella. Very distinct helmet on that particular Darkfire. Quite similar to PK's actually in the splodges and the white bits. Except Parma's is blue, PK's is red. And René Arnoux coming under pressure once again, this time from Gerhard Berger. Shops in front of him under braking for Tosa. And Arnoux hanging on to 10th position grimly. Big lockup for Boutsen going into the Alta chicane. And that's going to give Alesi a bit of a run. Although he is 2.8 seconds back, 2.9 on this lap. He'll gain some of that back thanks to Boutsen's Slight braking issue. And you can see Boutsen's helmet with the red and yellow and black colours of Belgium, and how they cross to make a unique design. And Michele Alboreto slowing down, or he's in fact got a braking issue of some sort. I think he was just defending that position from Stefano Modena. So no problem for Alboreto, except that he has got a very feisty AJ all over his rear. Let's just switch to Boutsen once again, and it is still 2.8 seconds, so Lacey didn't catch up as much as I thought on that previous lap. Meanwhile, PK has now extended the gap a little bit more. It's now 6.7 seconds. And Willow's urging Michele Alboreto to get a bit of a move on. But be happy that he's dropped down the order. Where did he start? He started 9th on the grid. Now he's down to 15, so it doesn't look as if Willows have a particularly good car this race. There's only one of them in the race. Another lock-up, this time from Berger. He has taken a position away from Arnu now. So the Austrian up to P10 now. Now can he do something about the flying Senna, who is 4.5 seconds in front? I doubt it, because the Darkfire has been a very, very quick car. There is Senna in 9th position, and the gap between himself and Derek Warwick is 6 seconds, so he's got a bit of catching up to do. It could be 5 seconds, I think. It's definitely 5 or 6 that you can see on the top of your screen there. And he currently holds the fastest lap. Prost's just taken half a second out of PK on this lap. So Prost now getting a bit of a spurt on as we go on board with the race leader, Nelson Piquet, who's just set a pretty quick first sector. A very quick first sector, 3/10 quicker than Prost. So it doesn't look as if the Renault has got particularly good straight line speed on this circuit, because we've seen Arnoux drop down the order. But the FJR chassis doesn't seem too bad. Prost and Patrese are making good use out of it, as they both sit 2nd and 5th. We have a look at the Tornado of Maurizio Gugelmin, piercing the curb at the exit of the Variante Bassa. And he's pulling away from Michele Alboreto now. Sort of, it's 2.7 seconds. Now, Maurizio Gugelmin's helmet you can actually unlock on F1 2006. That was a helmet I tended to use whenever I played that game. It's a nice helmet. Use some old school classic helmets on the entire field. As we see Derek Warwick having a bit of an odd moment coming out of the Acqua Minerale complex as he goes into the Variante Alta chicane. Senna closing in quite dramatically on the Gajera driver. 3 seconds the gap. Here's second place Prost, who had that engine failure in Brazil, and will be hoping for better reliability as De Cesaris locks up his tyres going into the Variante Alta. Now he's trying to catch up to Stefano Modena now. 2.6 seconds the gap between the two AJs, and Johnny Herbert, who we've not seen quite a lot of this race, is behind this driver here, De Cesaris. Where did he finish in the Brazilian Grand Prix? I'll tell you, it was 12th. 1 place behind Stefano Modena. The last runner on that particular race, 14 finishers in Brazil, it was Pierluigi Martini, and he's having a much better race this time around than he did in Brazil. So the characteristics of the unbearable chassis seem to suit Imola a bit better than Rio. Here's Eddie Cheever proving that as he tries to get alongside Arnoux, going into the Tosa hairpin, and out of the track, out of the race, that is Pedersen, it is Martin Brundle. So he becomes another retirement of the race. I think that's the 3rd retirement. As Arnoux gets it all wrong going into Piratella and loses a position to Eddie Cheever in the process. And somewhere in the transmission has gone a bit wrong for Brundle. There you can see on the screen. So we usually say gearbox, but it could well be a drive shaft as well. More likely to be a gearbox problem, so let's say that Brundle had an unfortunate gearbox issue, as his head has come off. Boutsen and Alesi dropping back now from the leader Prost. He's now 14.3 seconds. Leader Piquet, sorry, there's second place Prost. In the Canon-sponsored FJR, there's the marshal running, letting him know that the green flag is there. Boutsen doesn't get that luxury as he goes up the hill towards Piratella. Derek Warwick versus Ayrton Senna for 8th position now, so Senna caught up to Warwick very, very quickly. Let's see how quickly he can overtake the Brit as we go on board with second place Prost in the FJR. He's extended the gap between himself and Boutsen to 7.8 seconds. Let's see what it is as we go through the second sector point. 7.9 I saw at the top. Warwick nearly getting his bottom kissed by Senna going through the Piratella. And there's Warwick's teammate Gerhard Berger having a bit of a lock-up. And we go back to the other Gajera. So Gajera's proving very popular on lap 24. One of them for slightly the wrong reason, because Senna is on the march. Won't get him into the Variante Alta. I reckon going into Tosa, he's getting a bit on the curb at the exit there. It didn't really do him any harm. Senna wasn't close enough in the end. 6.9 second lead now between Piquet and Prost. He's edged the gap out a bit more. And Prost 8.3 ahead of Boutsen. We concentrate on this battle for 8th position. It could well be points depending on the reliability of the cars in front of this lot. Exiting the Variante Bassa, and here comes Senna's opportunity. Trying the inside into Tamirello. It didn't work before, but Senna lifting off slightly earlier, and as a result he's still in the slipstream, but there you can see lifting off how harmful it can be, because he wasn't even close going into the braking zone of the Tosa hairpin. Mansell is catching Patrese, so we're going to see a battle for 5th sometime soon. The gap is now exactly 1.7 seconds between those two. As Senna takes an outrageous look at the inside into Piratella, but nothing coming of it. Next opportunity into Aqua Minerale. Warwick defending. Is Senna still going to try the inside? He is. Nearly contact between the two, but Warwick hangs on. Still in 8th position. Can Warwick do a better job at the Variante Alta chicane? He's not under pressure this time. You can see how quick Senna is on the brakes going into the chicane. He's going to gobble him up under braking for Tosa, I reckon, on the next lap. Certainly not close enough going into the Ravazza. Boutsen was slightly quicker than Prost on that lap, about 3/10 this time. So I think Prost is having a bit of a breather with his tyres. And the gap between Patrese and Mansell, just 1 second. Mansell took 7/10, and look at that! Senna nearly ripping his front wing off against Warwick's left rear tyre as he takes, finally, 8th position away from the Brit. Now Senna's going to set off in hot pursuit after Pierluigi Martini. So one red car, about to chase another. First sector point is around here under braking for Tosa, 7.1 seconds. How quickly can Senna catch that up to Martini? As we are about to enter the pit stop window. Everyone expected to do 1 stops. Who's going to blink first, I wonder? I'd like to see Patrese and Mansell. There's a battle about to develop between those two. And how quick Mansell is on this particular lap. Renault engine not the most powerful on the grid. So I reckon Mansell, if he gets enough of a slipstream, there they are. He's a lot quicker on this lap than Prix. 3 tenths so far, but he looks a lot less than that. Well, the gap's 7 tenths through the second sector point. Now let's see what Mansell can do on this straight. So it's 6 tenths of a second, the gap between Prix and Mansell as they start lap 27. How effective is the slipstream? How effective is the Honda engine? You can see the top speed building up, that's in the slipstream, 290. So Honda's not quite as powerful as Ferrari, it seems, because Senna hit 292, and that was without a slipstream. Then again, Mansell could be feathering off the throttle slightly. Who knows? And he's going a fair bit on his first stint as well. You can see the fuel ran out on the top, nearly at the inside, actually at the inside into Minerali. That was a tight move, but Prix hangs on to 5th position. Now, where's Mansell going to get his second opportunity? So Prix very robust with his defence, but how robust is he prepared to be? Because it looks as if the Tornado is a quicker car at this stage than the FJR. Not close enough going into Ravazza. It's not a good run coming out of the second Ravazza at that point. Now into the Variante Bassa. Mansell is going to get a second opportunity on the next lap, probably into the Tosa hairpin. Here we go. Gap just 3 tenths as they cross the line. Mansell taking it a little bit easy, going through the Tamburello, looking around the outside, now the inside, and back in the slipstream goes Mansell. He's close enough for a move on the braking. And here he goes. Nigel Mansell is going to outbrake Prix for 5th position as they go through the Tosa hairpin. So now Mansell's next target is Jean Alesi, who still sits in a pretty respectable 4th position for the Shake and Bake Ferrari. And it was 8.7 seconds as they crossed the first sector point. Let's see what it is as they go through the second sector point. The Gitan-sponsored Tornado. 8.4 seconds as they cross the second sector point, so Mansell is definitely going to catch Alesi, but how far can he go into the first stint when he makes his one and only stop? And will the advantage of fresh tyres prove very beneficial as they exit the pits? How great will that advantage be? Here's Senna, who is now 3.7 seconds behind Martini. So he's definitely catching the Italian. The highest placed Italian in this race at the moment is Riccardo Patrese in 6th position. Then it is Martini in 7th. As for the other Italians, both AJs are still in there, with Modena and De Cesaris. In the race, rather. Alboreto is still in the race. Nannini, I think, is still in the race. But we concentrate on the developing battle for 7th between Martini and Senna. Same engine in the back of these cars, but the Darkfire is a quicker car at the moment. Through Piratello goes Senna. It was 2.9 seconds as they crossed the first sector point. I wonder what it'll be as they cross the second sector point, which is located somewhere at the exit of this corner, the Acqua Minerale. 2.5 seconds, so 4/10 of a second quicker in the second sector alone. And as they approach half distance, they can see the list of retirements there. There's Johansson, Alboreto and Nakajima. Nakajima spinning off in the first laps. There's been some sort of incident at the Piratella, I think. And it's Rennie Arnoux who has stopped out on circuit. That's a shame, qualifying third on the grid. And a throttle issue, so that's very unusual to see. He'll come back into the pits and say that his accelerator pedal has snapped. Usually it's just the linkage between throttle and engine that breaks. So we've got an Andrew F1 out of the race. The other one currently sits in last. So we are at half distance now, and it is Nelson Piquet who still leads, having led from the very beginning when he took the lead from Boutsen. And Prost sits second, 7.8 seconds behind the Brazilian, and Boutsen still sits third. And Boutsen has maintained a gap of around 3 odd seconds, between 2.5 and 3 seconds to Jean Alesi. And there's another yellow flag. It's Johnny Herbert who has pulled off the circuit, and he's crashed. So let's see what happens to him. Running in 17th position ahead of Nannini, and just behind Jonathan Palmer. Through the final chicane, and understeering into the tyre barrier at the exit of the Variante Bassa. So Johnny Herbert becomes the 5th retirement of the race, and the 2nd one to retire not through mechanical dramas. And we've got another retirement. It's Andrea de Cesaris who's had suspension issues. So we are starting to see quite a lot of retirements now. Mostly mechanical, but partly, well, one of them was an accident. And I think de Cesaris, it was somewhere after Tamburello where he was pulling off the circuit. And you can see how quickly Senna's just caught up to the back of Martini. It was 1.2 seconds as they crossed the second sector point. It's now 0.6 of a second as they cross the start-finish line, so Senna absolutely flying at this stage of the race. How far can he get up the field? What is the gap between Patrese and Martini? As they cross the first sector point, it is 6.1 seconds. So Senna is probably going to get a points finish if he carries on like this. But will the Darkfire be reliable enough? We did see an electrical gremlin for Senna in Brazil. And ironically that helped him quite a lot because it allowed him to make an early first stop for tyres, and Senna's having a look at the inside of Aqua Minerale, but Martini hangs on, taking a completely wrong line in the third part of Aqua Minerale. It should be okay going into the Variante Alta, and this is going to extend the gap between himself and Patrese. It's now up to 7.4 seconds. Now Senna's going to have a bit of a run going into the Ravazza, looking at the outside, but not enough as Martini goes back to the racing line. It says Alex Caffey on the side, but obviously the Unbearable forgot to tell Caffey that he wasn't driving. Meanwhile, Piquet and Prost are definitely pulling away from Boutsen. It's a two-horse race between those two, though I suspect Piquet has got the measure of Prost. And the gap between Boutsen and Alesi is still 2.7 seconds, so that's not budging. But Mansell is catching up to Alesi, and Senna is catching up to Martini through the Tamburello. Back in the slipstream goes the Brazilian. Top speed of 2.89 for Martini. As Senna is now at the inside on the brakes, but Martini hangs on round the outside. So good battle between these two as they go up the hill towards Piratella. Senna due in the pits this lap, so he's going to change tyres early. Michele Alboreto, one of the first to pit. And they're past half distance as well, so they've got an impressively long way on this tyre and fuel load. Exiting the Aqua Minerale goes Senna. chasing Martini. And by the way, behind this lot, it is Derek Warwick in 9th position for the Gajera, 9.1 seconds behind this battle and not catching. So I think Warwick is destined for a low top 10 position if things stay as they are. Not a great in-lap for Senna, but no doubt he'll use new tyres to great effect, as he did in Brazil twice. And we'll see Senna go straight on into the pits. There he goes, so Senna making a pit stop now. Gerhard Berger's also making a pit stop. 9.4 seconds, that's not especially quick. Eddie Cheever into the pits as well in the other unbearable. And a nice clear track for Ayrton Senna. And Senna rejoined in 9th position, behind Warwick, but Warwick has got to make a pit stop. And in 10th position at the moment is Stefano Modena. Obviously, the pit stop sequences are underway at this point. Now let's see the front lot. I think PK is going to pit first, and Prost is going quite a long way into the races. But Tracy is going to make a pit stop from 6th position. And he'll rejoin behind Martini, as the gap is only 7.5 seconds between the two Italians, through the Variante Bassa. And then he'll go straight on into the FJR pit box. .8 seconds the pit stop, so a couple of seconds quicker than Ayrton Senna. Now we'll stay with Patrese for a bit, hopefully, as we'll see how much a pit stop loses you. You can see on the top right there, we're approaching 30 seconds. And he rejoined ahead of Senna, behind Warwick. As Stefano Modena comes into the pits. So roughly 23 seconds you lose for a pit stop, maybe a little bit more depending on where the start line is. So keep an eye on that 23 seconds. Modena exits the pits. And PK continues for another lap, as does Alain Prost, as does, it seems, Boutsen and Patrese. So the top 5 not blinking just yet. Martini sits in 6th at the moment. Is he going to go into the pits? Mansell certainly isn't, going for at least another lap. And in fact, Mansell is catching up to Alesi now. So there's going to be a battle between those two developing shortly. Nelson Piquet from the lead coming into the pits now. Senna just set a new fastest lap of a 1:33. It's absolutely flying on the new set of tyres. 1:33.581 to be exact. And 7.5 seconds is the stop for Piquet. And there he goes. Prost briefly leads, but having yet to make a pit stop. Piquet rejoining second. A long way out ahead of Boutsen. There's the leader, Prost, and not pitting on this lap, so he's going at least 1 or 2 laps longer than Piquet. Or at least 2, actually, maybe 3. Meanwhile, Alesi and Mansell are very close together now in the battle for 4th position. So let's see how that battle will resolve. And there they are, right on cue. Mansell quicker than Alesi at this stage of the race. Both have yet to make a pit stop. And you better be careful because Senna is absolutely flying on his new set of tyres. I think Gugelmin is due into the pits this lap. You can see on the top the red pit indicator, which indicates that the teammate of this driver is due in the pits this lap. So I think Mansell's going to come into the pits on the next lap. It is Martini who currently sits in 6th position, but remember the top 6 except for Piquet have to make a pit stop. Piquet's already made his stop. Prost goes through for another lap. So running quite a bit longer than Patrese, it seems. As Alesi and Mansell exit the Variante Bassa to start another lap. The fuel getting fairly dry now on these cars. Mansell having a look around the outside at Tamburello. That's not going to work. Back in the slipstream goes Nigel. Look at the top speed, nearly 300 Ks. And trying to outbrake Alesi. Alesi defending quite aggressively up the inside of Toza. And as a result, he hangs on to 4th position. As I say, they need to be careful because if they keep battling, they may get jumped by Senna. Now the inside into Piratella goes Mansell, and side by side they go. Mansell's taken the position away from Alesi, so that's a key move for Mansell. And no indication of him pitting. Alesi, contact between the two. Alesi had to go back at Nigel, going into the Aqua Minerale complex. So goodness me, and Gugelmin now pits. So expecting Mansell in probably the next lap. That was crucial for him to get out ahead of Alesi, overtake him on the circuit. Look at the distance he's pulling away from the shake and bake driver. So the Honda-powered Tornado absolutely flying before the first pit stop. Now his next target is Thierry Boutsen. So there's a possibility of a podium for Nigel Mansell, and that's a terrific effort, having started way down in 12th on the grid. As Boutsen comes into the pits, in fact, so he's possibly responding to the charge of Mansell, as does Alesi. Alesi in the pits as well, and Mansell is going to pit at the exit of this lap, as we have a look at Boutsen, exiting the pits in 8.1 seconds. And comfortably ahead of Jean Alesi. And Alesi exits the pits. There's Senna! Senna's right up at the back of Alesi, and I think he's passed him already. So new tyres benefiting Senna massively. There he goes. And there's Patrese behind Alesi as well. So Alesi nearly lost the position to the FJR driver. So the key one now is Mansell's pit stop. You'll rejoin behind Boutsen. And there's still Martini to make a pit stop as well. Mansell pushing quite hard on his in-lap as Nannini comes into the pits. Still no sign of Prost making a pit stop yet. So he's going very, very deep into the race. Should rejoin in second. Now Prost is in. Alain Prost making a pit stop from the lead, and this will hand the lead back to Piquet. But now Prost has got the fresher tyres compared to the Brazilian. And watch Mansell go straight on. There he goes. Making a pit stop goes the Tornado. Now the key target is to make sure to get out ahead of Alesi and Senna. If he can get out ahead of Senna, then that will do his race a lot of good. Because no doubt Senna has been flying on his new set of tyres. On go new Goodyears for the Tornado. And away in 7.4 seconds goes Mansell. Now where's Senna? I think Senna's already got past Mansell. So Senna absolutely using new tyres to maximum effect. And there goes Alesi past Mansell. So that's gone from bad to worse for the Tornado driver. And just behind there is Patrese. This is going to be the battle for third position now. I suspect between Boutsen, Senna, Alesi, Mansell, Patrese. I don't think Patrese has got the tyres underneath him because he is one of the first to stop. And Martini, once he makes his pit stop, will rejoin behind this lot. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they can all do. It benefits Mansell because he is on the freshest of the tyres out of this group. And exiting Aqua Minerale once again. This is the 39th lap. And the pit stops almost complete now. There's just Martini to sort out. And Tornado not very happy about the Mansell pit stop there. Oh, off! Who's that? Is that Martini has gone off the track from third position? That's a costly mistake there. Or was it contact? It was contact between Boutsen and Martini. That was very rude. And Senna up to third, taking advantage of that beautifully. So now the order is Piquet, Prost and Senna. So Senna's fight back pretty much there now. How far back from Prost is Senna? There is Ayrton. And the gap between Senna and Boutsen is, as they cross the line, well, it's 18 seconds between Prost and Senna. So I don't think Senna is going to catch up to Alain because Alain has got the fresher tyres. It's now battle for third between Senna, Prost, no, Senna and Boutsen. And just behind, we've got Nigel Mansell in a mix. The hill towards Piratella. Senna pulling away a little bit from Boutsen. There's Alesi in 5th position, ahead of Mansell in 6th. And they're going to do battle once again into Aqua Minerale, nearly contact between the two drivers once again. With the Aqua Minerale they go. Mansell has got the fresher tyres and has been the quicker car all race than Alesi. Mansell's had to do some fighting. And the gap between Boutsen and Alesi is 2.7 seconds. So I'm not sure Alesi has got the pace to catch up to the Belgian. And to Ravazza, Mansell not close enough this time around. We have to wait until Toza on the next lap to challenge for that 5th position, currently held by Jean Alesi. So as we hit 2/3 distance now, we concentrate on this battle for 5th position. Behind them, Patrese seems to be dropping back a bit from these two. So I'm not sure if Patrese is going to get points this time around. And Piquet leads. It's 13.1 seconds, the gap between himself and Prost. Mansell is having a look at the inside contact between the two, and off the track goes Alesi. And is it going to make the barriers? Not quite. And that's cost Alesi dearly, and he's lost 6th position to Patrese as well. So Mansell deciding that he's had absolutely enough of being in traffic, barges Alesi out of the way for 5th position. Next target for him is Thierry Boutsen. It was 2.9 seconds as they crossed the line. It's 2.7 seconds as they cross the first sector point. And there you can see Senna and Boutsen separate by 1.5 seconds. Senna is quicker than Prost at the moment, but not enough to catch up to the Frenchman come the end of the race. Breaking half for Rivazza. 17.8 the gap between the two as they cross the second sector point. Ferrari's engine in the back of the Darkfire has definitely got the power advantage compared to the Renault in the back of the FJR. The FJR seems quite good in the second and third sectors. Let's see what the gap is as they cross the line. It was 17.8 seconds, it's still 17.8 seconds. So I reckon Prost has got the measure of Senna at this stage of the race. And Senna is pulling away from Boutsen, but Mansell is catching up to Boutsen. So there's going to be a battle for 4th position between the Belgian and the Brit. And it's going to be the last 18 laps where it will occur. Another 10th gained for Mansell on Boutsen as they cross the first sector point. Pretty much flat out from Variante Bassa to Tosa. So the entirety of the first sector consists of a big flat out blast through Tamburello. So it's purely a power sector, and Senna has got a problem. Senna's got an issue. He's dropped back to behind Boutsen and Mansell. So there's a reliability gremlin on the Darkfire, just as in Brazil, but this time around it's a lot more costly. So there we go, and again it's electrical. It's exactly the same issue as Senna had in Brazil that has crept up to him in Imola. That's going to move. That's moved Boutsen up to 3rd, Mansell up to 4th, and it's going to move Patrese up to 5th position. Who is going to be 6th? I think it is Jean Alesi who's going to move up to 6th. And up the inside now goes Patrese. That is 5th for the Italian, the highest placed Italian in this race. And then behind him, someone who was born in Italy, in the Sicilian region. Alesi from having non-contact between Alesi and Senna. Alesi getting a bit impatient through Variante Bassa. And into the pits comes Senna, just giving Alesi a little bit of a swerve just to let him know, hey, I've got a problem with my car, just let me be. And that's going to cost Darkfire dearly. So no 9-pointer this time for Senna. Is he going to get any points? Well, he's certainly got new tyres. And at the pits in 4.7 seconds goes the Brazilian. That's Martini in front, so Senna rejoins in 9th. 10th now as Eddie Cheever goes past. So who is in 7th position, because Martini is 8th, Cheever is 9th, and it is Gerhard Berger who sits in 7th position. You can see the rest of the top 12. Derek Warwick is 11th and Stefano Modena is 12th. Alboreto 13th at the moment for Willows, and the other tornado, Maurizio Gugelmin 14th. Jonathan Palmer, Senna's teammate, in 15th. Nannini 16th. Senna having a look up the inside of Cheever. But Cheever hanging on to that 9th position. And now look at Derek Warwick coming up to the back of Senna. I expect Senna to pull away at this stage, and probably even set a new fastest lap in the process. He currently holds that with a 1:33.581. There may be a possibility of a point, but it is quite a long way back now from Alesi, an entire pit stop, so around 25 seconds. 25 seconds in 17 laps. Let's see if Senna can do that. So across the line to start lap 44 go Cheever and Senna. It's the battle for 9th position. Senna was having a look up the inside there. As we concentrate now on a battle for 3rd position between Thierry Boutsen and Nigel Mansell. Mansell has caught up to Boutsen, as expected on the fresher tyres. But if he does get a podium, that will cap off a splendid drive for Nigel, from 12th on the grid. So Honda's showing a lot better in the race than they were in qualifying. In fact, the highest placed Honda during qualifying were the two Willows, Nakajima and Alboreto in 8th and 9th. but the race hasn't worked out at all well for them. Whereas the opposite effect has happened on Mansell. Started 12th and is challenging Boutsen for 3rd position. And Piquet holding a 13.5-second gap over Prost. And look at that, contact between Boutsen and Mansell going into the Variante Bassa. So Mansell really impatient, desperate to get that podium finish. He's got a quarter of the race to go. He doesn't need to be that impatient, but anyway, both cars survive for another lap. And through Tamburello they go, as the commentary box has some drilling noises in the background. But anyway, not close enough this time going into the Tosa corner. Gonna have to wait until probably the Acqua Minerale. Needs a good run coming out of the Piratella if he's still gonna... And Boutsen defending slightly, going into Piratella. That'll compromise his exit a little bit. This is Mansell's opportunity now. And up the inside, he does the dummy on Boutsen, going into Acqua Minerale, and that is 3rd position for Mansell. So he's taken his grid position, and he's divided it by 4 as he moves up into 3rd position at this point in the race, lap 45. And behind Boutsen, we've got Patrese and Alesi separated by 4.3 seconds. I think that gap's probably going to remain static. As Mansell, look at the gap between himself and Boutsen as he pulls away enormously. Now then, it's 22.2 seconds to Prost, but Prost is on fairly new tyres, so I don't expect Mansell to close up, but you never know as he locks up slightly going into the first Bassa chicane. Don't think that's going to give Boutsen the opportunity of a slipstream run into Tosa. Nah, it's a bit too far back going across the line. A whole second, in fact. Through Tamburello, let's see the top speeds on this Honda-engined Tornado. And 290 without the slipstream, so it's not too bad for Mansell. Braking hard for Tosa, 21.9 seconds, so it took 0.3 of a second out of Prost in the first sector, but remember the Renault engine is not as powerful as the Honda engine in the back of the Tornado, so that's not too much of a surprise. And the gap between Patrese and Alesi coming down slightly, but with 14 laps to go, I don't think it'll be enough for the French Sicilian. He was born Giovanni Alesi, but then when he moved to France, he changed his name to Jean. There's your factoid of the day. Ayrton Senna in 9th position after his unscheduled pit stop. 1.3 seconds, the gap between himself and Pierluigi Martini, who sits in 8th position. So Martini lost out horribly in the pit stops because he's behind Gerhard Berger, who sits in 7th position. I say horribly, he's still in 8th, but top 6 get points rather than the top 8 of normal FF1M. Tornado acknowledging the recovery drive of Nigel Mansell, and he says if it wasn't for a poor qualifying, Mansell could have been in contention for the win, but from P12 on the grid, that's a good recovery drive. I definitely agree with that sentiment. Mansell has had a fantastic race to go from 12th to 3rd. 35 seconds behind Piquet, but most of Mansell's race was spent in traffic, so yeah, that's a good race for Nigel, if he can hold on to this position. But we have a look at Senna, who is flying on his new set of tyres, not close enough to Martini on this occasion. I didn't see a new fastest lap pop up for Senna yet. In the slipstream, he is pretty nippy. And a good run out of Tosa. Is he going to have a look at Martini going into the Piratella? Martini defending a little bit. Senna dummies him, and contact between the two. Senna spins! Not for the first time at this corner. And he needs to rejoin pretty quickly, otherwise, and they've just noticed that. So good news for Senna, he's still in the race. The bad news, you're down to 11th. And James Whiteley's not happy about that at all. At least he can set off charging now. It is Warwick who is going to chase for P10. And there's Eddie Cheever in 9th. So both unbearables in the top 9, just outside the points. And there is Nigel, who does a 1:34.5. Roughly 800ths off of his personal best, so lapping consistently. And closing up to Prost a little bit. 21.1 seconds. Looks like a tall order in 12 laps. And once again, the gap closing ever so slightly between Patrese and Alesi. That's the 5th place. Well, it's not exactly a battle because there is a gap of 3.9 seconds between the two. You never know, traffic could come into play. We've not seen a lot of lapping manoeuvres as of yet. Mansell a 10th down on his personal best on this lap as he goes through the Variante Alta. I'd quite like to have a look at Piquet, the race leader, and have a little chat about the JGR Meister team. Brand new for this series and to the FF1M community. There's Nelson, and the gap has gone down a lot between himself and Prost. Now 10.7 seconds. I think Piquet is in the midst of traffic. He's just lapped Maurizio Gugelmin. So we are seeing some lapping manoeuvres, and the next one on Piquet's hit list is Jonathan Palmer. So Laura Chung has entered the team, JGR Meister, headquarters based in Germany, although Laura Chung is Chinese, and the first female FF1M principal. And it's great to see that she got a double points finish in the first race in Brazil, with Piquet and Johansson 2nd and 6th. And at this stage, they're doing one better. Piquet in the lead of the race, although Johansson did retire with some sort of mechanical issue. I believe it was suspension. But I might be wrong on that one. And there you can see Piquet braking hard for the Ravazza complex, the double left-hander. The tyre barrier is quite close to the outside, and the Agip Sint 2000 sponsorship on the outside. And through the Variante Bassa. That's the first one, and here's the second one. And Piquet exits that to start lap 50. So 10 laps to go of this race. And Piquet lapping in the 1:35.2 region. What sort of lap time is Prost doing at this stage? About the same, it's still 10.4 seconds. And a few mixed reactions about Senna's mechanical gremlin. The Tornado boss saying that it'll make the championship a little more interesting for at least one more race. And the Darkfire boss saying that these electrical issues could get costly. Well, it's definitely cost Senna in this particular race, as he is dropped down to 11th position. And a minor ad break before we go back to Piquet. And the gap between Patrese and Alesi has closed down quite a lot over the past lap or so. It's now 2.5 seconds. So there's going to be a battle for 5th position in the closing stages between the FJR and the Shake and Bake. Going to be a Yorkshire derby for that one. And Mansell's opened up the gap between himself and Boutsen. There's Nigel, there's Boutsen, and there is Patrese, who is shortly going to come under pressure over the next few laps or so from a resurgent Jean Alesi. As Patrese goes into the Variante Alta, there is Alesi right behind. Fiery little Frenchman, very exciting to watch. Was an FJR driver in most of his career, 8 seasons in a row, from season 2 of the Masters all the way to the first season of the management era, the dubbed 1996. And in that time, Alesi had 3 wins, one at the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix, when FJR won their first race of the season that year with Button in Hockenheim, and then later on with Alesi at Belgium. Then Alesi won at the, well, we call it 91, it's actually season 4. Then Alesi won at season 5 in Mexico, that was round 2, utilising a one-stop strategy to hold up the entire field, effectively ruining the Willow images, not the same team as Willow's, of Michael Schumacher, who was on a 2-stop. And then his third and final win came at the season 7 race at the Luxembourg Grand Prix. That was at the Nürburgring, and FJR actually had a 1-2 that race, with David Coulthard in second. So there's a glimpse into Alesi's career in FF1M. And right now he is trying to catch up to Riccardo Patrese with 9 laps to go. The gap is 2.4 seconds. That was as they crossed the first sector. It's now 2.3 as they crossed the second sector point. So it's catching up to Patrese slightly. Could come in handy in the final few laps though. But it'll be interesting to see the battle develop. Patrese 7.1 seconds behind Thierry Boutsen. So there's no battle for 4th position. Boutsen looks quite comfortable and somewhat lonely now after his spirited battle with Nigel Mansell for the podium place, with Mansell having pulled away quite a lot. Look at that, 4/10 of a second in the final sector. That consists of the Variante Alta, both Vivazzas and both Variante Batter chicanes. So Alesi's got more grip at this stage, and you can see 282, the top speed on the Renault-engined FJR. So roughly 7 kilometers an hour slower compared to the Ferrari and the Honda engines that are in the back of the Darkfire, the Pedersen, the Shake and Bake, and the Unbearable. Those are the Ferrari engined teams. And then the Honda engine teams, you've got Willows, Gojira, Tornado, and AJ. FJR and Andrew Racing running the Renault engines, and JGR Meister, the only team running Judd engines. Unusual symmetry compared to the normal FF1M world, where FJR are the only team on Judds. And in that series, there are 4 teams running Mugans, a subdivision of the Honda outfit. So Prost has brought the gap down to PK now to 10.1 seconds, but there's no real battle there between the two. Looks like PK's got this one fairly securely. Mansell third. The gap is 29 seconds between himself and race leader PK. Boutsen will cross the line shortly. 37 seconds behind PK, and then this battle developing for 5th position. At the start of the lap it was 1.9, and the gap is now 1.5 between Patrese and Alesi. So Alesi is going to catch up to Patrese. The question is when, and when he does, if he will overtake him. Going to be interesting till the end. 3/10 in that first sector alone, but remember Alesi has the Ferrari engine, which is more powerful than the FJR Renault. And Patrese on all the tyres. I'm suspecting a little bit of a foregone conclusion, but who knows how defensive Patrese is going to be or how aggressive Alesi is going to be. You can see Patrese working the wheel fairly smoothly, but grip level is not quite as good as the Shake and Bake at this stage, but pulling out 4/10 over Alesi in that middle sector. So I assume Alesi must have had a bit of a lock-up going into Tosa. Somebody's gone off somewhere at the Variante Bassa, and it's Maurizio Gugelmin, so one of the Tornadoes has crashed out. As I await the response from the Tornado boss. And it's going to be a similar incident to Johnny Herbert earlier on. So turning to the left, turning to the right, and understeering into the tyre barrier. So pretty much a mirror image of Johnny Herbert's crash earlier on. And being craned away to a safe location. So now with 6 laps to go, and the gap, there was 1 point, and Alesi being warned about debris on the circuit as they round the final chicane. And the debris is nowhere to be found, so no problem, let's resume the racing between this lot. Gerhard Berger's not doing too badly, he's only 4 seconds behind this battle that is developing. He was 1.4 seconds as they crossed the line. Alesi doing a top speed of around 287 on this current tour. Fastest was Ayrton Senna at 301, but I suspect that will be aided by some slipstream. And Maurizio getting a very sarcastic well done from Tornado. Oh well, he'll be on to the next race for the Brazilian. So 1.1 seconds, the gap between Patrese and Alesi as they crossed both Sector 1 and Sector 2. Berger 4.2 behind, so not quick enough to catch up to Alesi. But Alesi quick enough to catch up to Patrese, it seems. So it's usually 0.3 of a second quicker in the first sector, then the roughly evens in the second sector, and then Alesi catches up a little bit more going through the final sector. Patrese slightly wide at the first part of Variante Bassa, so it's going to be a lot less than a 1.1 seconds as they cross the line. 5 laps to go, possibly 6 laps to go. I think it is 6 laps. 0.9 of a second now between Alesi and Patrese. So Alesi is going to have a go before the end of the race for 5th position. It won't be on this lap, probably on the next lap. 2.89 on the dash. And it's 0.6 of a second. Braking hard for the Aqua Minerale. Let's see what the gap is as they cross the second sector point. Should be similar to the 0.6 buffer at the end of the first sector. It's 0.7, so Patrese has pulled out a 1/10 over Alesi. Now as they go through the Variante Alta. This is the sector where you need the grip with the 2 chicanes, 2 90-degree lefts and 2 more chicanes, one of which is quicker than the other. And Berger still 4.2 behind Alesi, so doesn't look as if Berger will catch up to this lot at the end of the race. So it's a 2-way battle for 5th as they go through the first Bassa and then the second Bassa. And Alesi now is going to get a bit of a slipstream, as now there are 5 laps to go. There's Berger, 0.7 of a second as they cross the start-finish line. Don't think Alesi is close enough on this occasion. No, nowhere near, in fact. So he's going to need a bit more. Just nudge 290, but it is 0.4 of a second. That is the power between Ferrari compared to Renault. And once again, Patrese edging out the gap in the second sector. 0.1 this time. Someone has had an incident at the Piratella. It's Martini. That's Martini out of the race for the Unbearable. That's a shame. He had a very good race up until then, and his gearbox has failed.
So imagine that would have failed coming out of Tosa, and then a bit more momentum, parking at the edge of the outside of Piratella. Back to the battle for 5th position now, and it doesn't look as if Alesi is close enough again on this occasion. Patrese having to take 2 turn-ins going into the second Variante Bassa as they cross the line. The gap is extended now. It is 0.8 per second. So Patrese doing a good job at maintaining his position ahead of Alesi, but there are still 4 laps to go, and Patrese will lose 0.3 of that lead going through the first sector. Indeed he does, now through Tosa. It's quite a good first sector from Patrese actually. That was a 10th or so quicker than his previous personal best. So he's pushing. Once again, the gap extends by 1/10 of a second going through the second sector. Alesi was quite demon on the brakes going into the Variante Alta, so Alesi might catch up a little bit in the final sector once again. Patrese may have the edge overall. Three laps to go, and it's 0.8 of a second still. Oh, Alesi's slowing down. Alesi's got an issue. Once again, in the closing stages of the race, the shake and bake pulls off with a mechanical problem. So there goes the battle for 5th position, quite anticlimactically. So that will move Gerhard Berger into the points, and it will move Senna up into 7th. So that's desperately unlucky for the Frenchman. Again, it's a suspension problem, same one as happened in Brazil. So there is Senna, a 10th quicker than his previous personal best, which is the fastest of the race. And Piquet has just put a lap on Senna's teammate, Jonathan Palmer. So 2 laps to go, and there is Nelson Piquet, who, ever since he took the lead on lap 1, has pretty much controlled the race, quite beautifully, actually. Pulling out the gap over Prost. And then pitting before Prost and using his new tyres to maintain that buffer over the FJR driver. Gap is 8.2 seconds at the moment. Piquet is in the traffic, so the gap will be going down a little bit as a result of that. But nowhere near enough for Prost to challenge Piquet for the race win. A good drive from Prost as well. Had that engine failure in Brazil, whilst running in second behind the other Brazilian, or another Brazilian, of Ayrton Senna. This time the FJR Renault running reliably, as both drivers are in the top 5, and Piquet is about to put a lap on Michele Alboreto. Some improvements needed at Willows. They qualified 8th and 9th, Nakajima ahead of Alboreto, but their race pace not quite as good. And in fact, Alboreto coming under pressure from Jonathan Palmer for the, not sure which position that is, but it's way down the order. It's for 11th position, so actually Alboreto has recovered that somewhat, but still they'll be looking for some points. And now Palmer is going to have a look up into Tamburello, but it's not close enough on that occasion. Backing off at the exit of Tamburello, now back in the slipstream, but not close enough going into the Tosa bend. That's their last opportunity going into Tosa, as they have been lapped by that driver there, Nelson Piquet. So Piquet has lapped everyone up until 10th place, who I believe is Eddie Cheever. I could be wrong on that one. And Palmer getting very close to the back of Alboreto, but not close enough to have a lunge. Oh, contact actually. And that was a bit cheeky from Palmer. And behind those two are Alessandro Nannini, who sits 13th, quite a way down, 10 seconds off of them. And his teammate retired with throttle linkage problem. And somebody has... Have they had an incident together at the Variante Alta, I wonder? Because Palmer's now ahead. And yes, Alboreto did have more contact with Palmer. Let's see what happens before we see Piquet finishing the final lap. And that was... Oh, he just spun off on his own. That was very clumsy driving there from Alboreto. Anyway, that was very silly. So back to the front. There is Nelson Piquet exiting the Ravazza and entering the Variante Bassa. That's one of them. Here comes the second one. And in only their second race of their short career so far, JGR Meister take their first win, courtesy of that driver there, Nelson Piquet. Thoroughly deserved, especially after... And the team congratulating Piquet on a superb win. Prost will come home in second position, 8.2 seconds behind the race winner. A good drive nonetheless from Alan, considering the engine failure that he suffered in Brazil. Well, there's Palmer. Laps there is Prost exiting Tamburello. And third will surely be Nigel Mansell. And we'll just wait confirmation of that as we watch Piquet accept the plaudits on his slowdown lap. So there you can see a good result nonetheless from Pedersen. Second and fourth position in a row after Martin Brundle took that in Brazil. And then Riccardo Patrese fifth, holding on to that position from Alesi, who suffered that unfortunate mechanical issue. Berger 6th for Gajera, so Gajera getting their first points of the season. Then Ayrton Senna, after an eventful race, finishes 7th after mechanical issues, spins, and plenty. Mickey Cheever 8th for Unbearable, and completing the top 10 are Derek Orrin. And the last driver on the lead lap, Stefano Botman. Jonathan Palmer is 11th for Dark Fire, Clackdown. 12th and Alboreto 13th. Late retirements there, but still classified, and non-finishers, Maurizio Gugelmin, Andrea De Cesaris, with a suspension failure, and then Johnny Herbert. Gugelmin and Herbert crashed out at the exit of Variante Bassa. Reniano suffered a strange throttle cable breakage, and then Martin Brundle, another gearbox problem. He had suspension failure, and then not completing a single lap was Satoru Nakajima, who had that unfortunate incident with his teammate, and I believe it was one of the unbearings that was the first toes ahead. So that will put Nelson Piquet in the lead of the Drivers' Championship. 15 points now is his points total. It should be Ayrton Senna, 6th in the championship, on 9 points, and then Nigel Mansell will sit 3rd in the championship with 8 points for the top end of the team. And then Alain Prost will be 4th in the championship thanks to his 2nd place at Imola. And there you can see the fastest laps. We had Ayrton Senna, who did set the fastest lap in the end, the 1:33.581. That will have been on his 2nd set of tyres because he didn't set another new fastest lap on his 3rd set of tyres. Martini was the 2nd quickest driver out on the circuit. That would have been thanks to his late pit stop. And then Nelson Piquet, 3rd quickest lap, followed by Nigel Mansell, and then Jonathan Palmer just showing how quick the dark fire is by setting the 5th fastest time during that race. Prost 6th fastest time, so fairly consistent, from as you'd expect from the professor. So that was the 1989 San Marino Grand Prix. We'll be back tomorrow. Unlikely to be a live commentary for certainly most of the race. I'm getting a haircut. But we will be tuning in anyway, 2 o'clock for the next race, which I believe will be at Monaco. So we'll see you for then.